got two of them. Oh my God! That was too funny. Gosh. Hey, this is Luke Simons with Salt Strong. Today we have an awesome video for you. This is all about sight fishing redfish. And we're going to show you, first of all, some just amazing footage that we captured. This was all in Louisiana. This was a trip that we had over to Louisiana, and it was amazing. And so what we're going to talk about is sight fishing redfish in Louisiana versus Florida. That's what we're going to cover at the end. First of all, we're going to show you some of the best strikes from our trip out there. But then at the end, again, we're going to talk about the differences, because there was a very stark difference between the sight fishing, the tactics used in Louisiana versus Florida. The fish were in the same spots as they would be in either place. The same types of lures were working, but it was just something with the cast. And I'll give you a hint. It was something with the cast, and we'll show you some examples here toward the end. But first, let's cover some awesome fish catching footage. All right, so this first one was one of the most amazing redfish doubles that I've ever had. You know, this was just crazy close quarters and some really big fish. At least one of the fish was really big. The other one was actually good size, but it just looked like a baby compared to the big one.
That's you. I'm behind it. That's a giant freaking red. Two of them.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh, another one right here. Another one right here.
Oh, that was sick.
Oh, I got him!
Oh, dude!
That was crazy.
This is a big boy here.
That's a nice, respectable fish you caught.
It really is.
Not compared to, look at that thing. That thing's
Filming.
and she's off.
Freaking awesome.
What's up, bro?
Double, dude.
So that big fish from the prior clip was 41 inches, just a tad over, and so that was so far the biggest fish of the trip. And Joe was obviously rubbing it in. So my goal was to beat him. And we get into this pond, and C.A. Richardson, who we were fishing with, was on the push pole. He said, "Hey, big fish, 9 o'clock." I made a cast over there. It turned at it, but it wouldn't take. And so I got the second cast. At this point, I can't see it, and I was just hoping I can get this fish to eat. Oh my gosh! Oh.
That was sick! Did you see him? Dude!
That's a big fish, man.
Staring right in your face!
So now for the fight, though, and this lake that we're in at this point had a lot of vegetation, and this redfish was going right into it. It was really just kind of bulldozing through, and I had all sorts of weight on the line from these weeds. So it was a little bit of a nervous fight there, but finally got it up to the boat and got it close enough to where CA can get the net on it.
Oh, there it is. Nice.
Yep.
That's a big red.
That is a monster red.
Look at the size of that.
That one might be bigger.
I think it is.
It's definitely bigger around. 26 and a half around.
26 and a half. So I've got the tip. I've got even with the tip right now.
43.
43.
All right, so that last fish got me on the leaderboard, so I was excited. And in this footage that we're going to check out, this is really unique in the fact that we were fishing the Mississippi Delta, so there's a lot of fresh water. So we were catching some bass out there, as well as these redfish and black drum. And this was a unique case. So now I have a bass on. I just now saw a big old redfish. So it's a small bass, but this redfish is like a 20-pound redfish. And so I was trying to coach Joe to have him see it, and finally it got up to the right angle where Joe could see it. His first cast wasn't ideal, and I was ripping on him for that, but he totally made up for it on this next cast, and we got just an amazing eat caught on film. Here it is. That was awesome.
That was awesome. I'll get my bass up now. That was awesome. Oh, looks like a black drum.
And so here's some footage showing that the same type of stuff is working for some big old black drum as well.
That was awesome.
Just has to be the right.
There. Oh, he knows he's hooked.
Yes, that was just a solid black drum that came up and slurped down that soft plastic paddle tail. This next clip is a really close quarters redfish.
Yes! That was sick, man.
Very technical.
Yeah.
Very, very technical.
All right, so I wanted to show you this redfish. This was probably the coolest looking redfish I've ever seen. I've never seen colors like this before. As soon as I get on the other side to see it, you'll be able to see it. But it was such an amazing looking red.
I'll see him, but... Oh, yeah. This is just crazy. This really is crazy.
Crap, man.
Under the boat, around the engine. Let the push pole show him where it is. That was amazing.
Yeah, here's that red, and generally I would say this is a nice red, but it just looks so small compared to those others from these clips. You know, this fishery really is special. And so anyhow, so here is this is the very end of the second day. We're just there for 2 days. So far, my 43 incher held the top slot for being the biggest fish. And then CA saw a big old fish behind him, so he put down the push pole, grabbed his rod, threw out a cast.
Nice, CA on the on the push pole. Giant redfish. Oh, that's a nice
big
one.
Boy. That's big.
All right, that's a big fish there.
In the net. The Luke even lift it up.
Woo! That's a big fish. That's a giant.
Oh, get the tape out for that one.
Yeah, this was a beast. I believe it measured it was just over 44, almost 45 inches. Giant redfish against sightfish on light tackle. What a fun fishery.
That's a giant, man.
All right, so now for the difference between Florida and Louisiana, and I mentioned that before, it was the cast. And there's a big old black drum, and you're going to see an example here. But it's all about not leading the fish in Louisiana. And these fish seem to kind of turn a lot when they're cruising. Florida's go straight, so you can lead them a long ways. If you lead them here in Louisiana, at least in this delta, by the time you get the lure to the fish, it'll have turned and it'll be out of sight. It won't see it. So there was just a super close quarters catch. Again, I just dropped it down maybe 2 feet in front of it and let it sink to about almost eye level, and then start reeling. And as soon as we started doing that, we started catching fish. But when we first got there, we were leading the fish like in Florida, and by time our lures got to the right distance, the fish had turned and it's like 5 feet over to the side. Right, so Florida, lead them. You have to lead them. They're super spooky.
Crazy how big
but here in Louisiana, just drop it right there in front of their nose, and they'll come up and suck it down. And here, this was a really cool opportunity. Dropped it in there. Obviously, not every time you drop it on their face, they're going to eat. These three redfish were timid. These were like the only timid redfish we happened to see that day. But catching fish or not catching fish, I mean, just sight fishing is just such a thrill, and to do it with redfish is one of my favorite fish. When they do decide to eat, they just bulldog at the bait, and it's just so much fun. So I'd be curious on your thoughts if you have been sight fishing in Louisiana and Florida. I'd be curious to see if you've seen the same difference on when I mentioned before on the casting, whether Florida typically requires a long lead, where Louisiana is kind of more on their face, on their nose. And so anyhow, if you haven't been to Louisiana, here is the place we were staying at. It's called Cajun Fishing Adventures. Cool lodge, run by some really nice people. And so we had an absolute blast there. It was a lot of fun. I definitely want to get back there again. So anyhow, thank you so much for your time and watching this video. I hope you can get on the water soon and catch some big ones.